Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. I got my little list, my stuff on my local thing started a little bit late, so now I have to read the big characters, or I should say, the little characters from the screen. So let's go ahead and say, welcome to everybody. Great to see everybody here today. I'm going to have to start reading from the small screen. Guess who's back? El Señor Rodden is back, and you know how he's going to come back? He's going to come back saying, Egberto, I'm about to go way over, trying to return after a week and a half of being effectively sidelined. And sir, you were missed. And you were so missed that you gave us so much to read. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. IPCC, window to avert catastrophic climate change is quickly closing. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change on Monday released its latest report, which found that the nations are falling short of their pledges to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to avert catastrophic climate change. While the technology exists to stay below 1.5, 2.7 Fahrenheit of average global temperature, the goal that virtually every nation agreed to in 2015, Paris Climate Agreement, and reaffirmed last year in the Glasgow Climate Pact. Current policies put the world on a trajectory toward at least twice as much warming, which would be devastating, people. This report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a litany of broken climate promises. It's a file of shame, cataloging the empty pledges that put us firmly on track towards an unlivable world. Time almost up, and we're still haven't passed the Green New Deal nor the full extent of Biden's Build Back Better. We're living on a freight train that's about to go off the tracks into a ravine, and we are next. Welcome aboard, Michael Rodnin. You are in fact back. I'm going to read the rest in a minute, but I want to salute my peeps. Welcome aboard. Wow, Michael. Alistair, welcome back, Michael Alistair says. Who else is here with us? Justin Booker. Free Colin Kaepernick. I love that one. They need to take him up in the NFL now, sir. We also have, para ver quién más está aquí, E2247. Welcome aboard. Egberto, one of the screen, if you've got it working, not yet. E2247, welcome aboard. Bridge FCP. Says Michael Rodnin, this is all I found. Poland's proposal to send international peacemakers into war-torn Ukraine is for Poland to discuss with NATO partners because Ukraine is not a member of the affiliate alliance. You know, it shouldn't have to be. If people are killing other people there, we should be able to do something about it. Melanie Keelan says, good evening, everybody. Melanie's over there in Barcelona, Spain. Bree says, hey, peeps as well. Let's see who else. Judith Becker, welcome, or rather, Justin Booker, welcome aboard. Let's see, Alistair Waters is here as well. I think I saluted you. All right, Rudnin, let's see what else I got here from you, because it's a lot. I probably won't get to all of them because we have quite a few videos, but was Ketanji Jackson, the judge in the Pizzagate case, rated true? Yes. The U.S. Supreme Court nominee reportedly has sentenced the shooter to prison in 2017, Edgar Madison White. The shooter pleaded guilty in March 2017 to federal charges of assault with a dangerous weapon and transporting a firearm over state lines. Yes, she did. So, other one, I can't read the whole thing, Rednin. Fox viewers transformed after watching CNN for 30 days, report finds. Wow. Despite regular Fox viewers being largely strong partisans, we found manifold effects of changing the stance of their media diets on their factual beliefs, attitudes, perceptions of issues' importance, and overall political views. The authors of the study, David Brockman and Joshua Cal. Oh, that's a good study you found. I got to look it up. I got to look that. This is, I mean, that means what we are doing here. Rudnin, what you just brought us says that what we're doing is important. Some people like to say, throw those people away. They can't be changed. We found large effects of watching CNN instead of Fox News on participants. Factual perception, current events, beliefs, and knowledge about the 2020 presidential candidates' positions, the research said. They discovered changes in attitudes about Donald Trump, and Republicans, as well as a large effect on their opinions about COVID. They found that participants became more likely to agree that if Donald Trump made a mistake, Fox News would not cover it. On COVID, viewers who switched were 6 percentage points more likely to believe other countries handled the virus better than the US, 5 points more likely to believe that people suffer from what's known as long COVID, and 11 points less likely to say president should focus more on containing violent protests than the pandemic's short version. The right-wing bubble is having a corrosive effect upon our society, and that getting conservatives away from their disinformation echo chambers statistically significant increases their factual knowledge. What Michael Rudnan just brought us, folks, is a very piece of important information. The work that you are supporting here at Politics Done Right works. That is effectively what that says. If we can open the lines of communication, if we can open the dialogue where they actually listen and not just fight and snore or whatever you call that, we can make a difference. Great. I mean, of everything you brought so far, that one gives me the most hope, Michael. Biden accuses Russia of war crimes. I saw that today. I'm not going to read that. Everybody saw that. Michael Renner says atrocities in Bucha and near Kiev fuel global outrage. Will it be a tipping point of the war? It should be. We should have every country want to march into Ukraine and say no more. But you know, that, I'll talk about that another time. But we should be doing that in a lot of other places as well, right? All right. Rudnin also says Biden calls for Putin to face war crimes that over civilian killings in Ukraine. You may remember I got criticized for calling Putin a war criminal. Yes. President Biden told reporters at the Fort McNair Army Post in Washington, well, the truth of the matter, we saw it happen in Bucha. He is a war criminal. The U.S. president was responding to narrowing images broadcast around the world after discovery over the weekend. Okay, I can get to my screen that I can actually read now, right? And I know Bridge is going to say, Egberto, put your glasses on. My glasses are dirty. My glasses are not going to work right now, Bridge. All right, let's continue here. Before I also continue, I want to say that we had a great Ask Egberto Anything over the weekend. I have the, for members, I'm going to start putting the video up as for members of Politics Done Right, the ones who joined up, so that they can see it on YouTube. You know, sort of a little perk there. What can I say? All right, let's see what else we got here. It's all I could find, Rudnin. Let's see what else we have here. Welcome, Eric Hayes. Eric Hayes was there with us. Got into some great conversation. Sanders complained about wealthy few. Okay, that is right. And he needs to do this to get political support all a given. He complains further about government subsidies to the space exploration company of each too. Space exploration is fundamental to what the country does right to go other planets. Wasn't the government that shut down the space shuttle and relied on Russia to hitch rides, place like space station? Isn't the government that approves subsidies to companies? Isn't Sanders part of the problem being said of the government? How can he explain? Okay, all right. Let me qualify some of that for you, Rudnin. First, I mean not Rudnin. Hayes. You're right. Government has allowed all these corporations to use us, the American people, as suckers. And the reason government has allowed that is we, the American people, have allowed them. The fact that you are always, Brother Hayes, protecting the plutocracy, most of the times, not all the time, but most of the times, prove why we have the government that we have. If you elect Republicans, you are electing corporations. If you elect neoliberal Democrats, you are electing corporations. If you elect progressives, you are electing people who support humanity. It's that simple. We, the people, are at fault. Tom C. says, great. Ask Egberto, Zoom meeting last Saturday. Thanks to all who participated. We had a great conversation. Greg says, Egberto, was this from Project Nightfam, and it addresses bullying vis-a-vis Will's Chris. I saw that. A very good message. You can't fix violence with violence. I agree. Yvette Avery Herod, welcome aboard, and it was great seeing the interview between the president of that union that in New York that really beat the crap out of Amazon and finally got them unionized. Breed says, you know, I wouldn't make it. Zoom meeting, had to finish outdoor project. Yeah, I know, but we still missed you. Tom C says, missed you, Bridge. Maybe next time, Bridge. We all want to go, but no, it's World War III. No, we're going to stop World War III, girlfriend. All right, let's see. Tom C says maybe it's time for a UN peacekeeping force to intervene in Ukraine. I think it is. Eric, it is cheaper on us all for government to let companies further space and innovation. That's a very false statement because we subsidize everything that these private space companies have done. We took the risk. We are the ones who create the technology. We are the ones who presented the proof of concept. And by the way, folks, I'm not just pulling stuff out my butt. I worked for NASA, okay? I worked for NASA. I see how things work. I understand how the private sector even uses NASA. NASA is a contractor, and a whole bunch of private companies that I worked for, Ford Aerospace, Planning Research Corporation, Lockheed, they all go and suck on the government's tit, give less than what they should for what it's supported. So no, all of this stuff, government is at fault because we elect the wrong people who do the wrong things. So that's what. Now I have a story, right? That I'm gonna play Linda Olson first because I need to find the. I have a piece that I thought I did with Biden, and I can't find the video. I thought I processed it already, and for some reason I can't find it. So I'm going to go ahead and play what we have right now. And while I'm playing it, I'm going to see if I can find that video. Otherwise, I'll have to play it tomorrow. But listen to Linda Olson. I think it's a great interview. It's a little bit off topic with today, what's going on today. But I think it's a necessary outlet for us right now. So this is about a 20-minute piece. Please listen to it. And again, some of you are going to be, like, well, why are we talking about stories? I believe in stories. So here's Linda, and then we'll take it on the other. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us. Today we have the honor of being with Linda Olson. She is the go-to story expert who helps authors, speakers, and entrepreneurs impact millions with their stories. She is a TEDx speaker, multiple best-selling author, and founder of Wealth Through Stories. Her mission is to impact 1 million people a year with multiple authors in her series, Story Matters. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Linda, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share with your audience.
Well, we are a political audience that love people, love stories, love everything. And when I saw what you were putting out there from your publicist, I said, you know what? I want, especially in these times, to have you on, because from the stories that you tell in your new book to the stories that people are going through all over America and beyond right now, this is what we need. So tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, as you've shared, I'm all about story. And really, it's about helping people to create and tell their stories to impact lives. You're absolutely right. Everybody's story has changed, even in this last year or two, one way or another. And if we can learn to learn from those stories and be able to share with others so that others can benefit and receive hope, it makes all the difference.
Now, I am all about stories. In my politics, I use stories to communicate to others. It doesn't matter what your ideology is, because what we find out is stories are interconnecting. And once we realize that stories are interconnected, in fact, we make a better place. We address each other as humans. Why don't you expand a bit on that?
Oh, absolutely. Because stories is how we connect with one another. We actually think in stories. And so it is also how we remember more than any other time. It's if we hear a story, we're associating this story with this person, and it's more likely that we will remember because it's how we think. Research tells us that we remember only 7% of what we hear, 23% of what we see, and 70% of what we experience. And I believe story is all about experience.
You're absolutely right. When you tell, all the things I remember from my youth are the things where I can give a complete narrative about. And that's one of the reasons I say in several of the books I've written myself is that stories really, as you say in your, stories really matter. Now, you wrote a book, Story Matters, Empowering Your Hope When Going Through Tough Times. And believe it or not, before I saw your name, before I saw the narrative of the, of who you were, etc., just the name of that got to me. And it said like, I think I want that.
Well, thank you. That's encouraging to hear. And, especially like you say, at the time that we're living in right now, we all need that hope to be able to go forward. It doesn't matter what our circumstances are, what kind of loss we face. We all need that hope to be able to move forward and know that our story counts. We don't have to stay stuck in our story. We can learn from our story and keep moving forward so that it can strengthen us to keep moving forward.
Now, you have several stories in your book. Why don't you tell us a little bit? I mean, we want people to make sure and have a reason to go out and get it. And not only that, but see themselves in a little piece of everything that you've seen in several stories and the stories that you want to bring on from beyond.
Well, there's actually 7 stories in the book, and let me see if I can just do an excerpt of a couple of them. One was a lady who within, I believe it was weeks or maybe the first few months, realized that something was not right with her newborn. And it turned out that she had, the infant had 4 tumors on her brain. But the doctors gave her all complete hope. They said, we need to do surgery because those tumors will grow, but once we do surgery, everything will be fine. They won't continue to grow. Well, that they did have surgery, but unfortunately the growth continued. And it turned out that this young gal grew and remained alive until just 2 weeks prior to her 15th birthday. But she was an amazing young gal. She said, I never want to feel like I'm not like everybody else. And even though she was in a wheelchair and needed a lot of help, she would be on that hospital ward, cheering everybody up, laughing at the doctors, this was home to her. And she believed that she was going to be able to live to tell her story. And she had tremendous amount of faith. And even though she isn't here to tell her story, her mother is now writing the book of the 2 of them, and is sharing her story. Well, so that's, yes, go ahead.
Interestingly, what I was about to say is I think something you said at the tail end. She did live to tell her story. She lived her story, and her mother is telling her story, right?
Yep, that's right, because she's passing on her legacy. Another young lady had, after going through a difficult background, very difficult, abusive background, and one day just went to her doctor for a regular appointment. And the doctor said, I do not have good news. You have stage 4 cancer, and there's nothing we can do that will help you along. And at that point, she thought, why go on living? And she said, I was faced with the hardest question I've ever been faced with, and that is, do I live or do I die? And realized she had 3 children, even though they were grown, they still need her. And now and the doctor gave her 1 to 5 years. She is now in her 2nd year, written her first book, working on her 2nd, and working on an entire children's series and doing all the artwork. I had no idea she was an artist. She said, I'm living life fuller now than I ever have.
Now, how is she doing medically? I mean, that's just out of curiosity.
You know what is amazing? I mean, she doesn't have a lot of, the same kind of energy that maybe you and I have, but she's at home and loves her artwork, loves her writing, and and really is doing quite well medically.
Interestingly, out of her story, there's much to get, right? And you always think that you have it bad. And the thing about it is, when she says she chose to live, I mean, if all of us thought that way with all the tribulations that we're going through right now, it's like, they're just tribulations. Let's find a way to I mean, if it's not hurting you, if they're not shooting you, if they're not doing something to you, why not just live?
Absolutely. And the thing is, to me, the thing that stood out the biggest is that this is a choice. And we face that choice every day, whether we're going to make the most of it and live life to the fullest, or whether we're just going to let the day go by. It's always a choice.
And I think that is such an important thing to, especially in, look, like I said, you're on a political show, Linda, but especially in being on in our domain, right? Whoever wins, loses, or whatever, a lot of folks always tend to go into a funk or whatever. And it's like, you know, what I try to put out to my folks is, what is different from day one to day two? Generally, not much. So why would you make externalities make such a difference between day one and day two? It's a mindset that you have to get to. And I think stories, as you mentioned about printing and publishing stories and listening to people's stories and having people's stories out there, that is one thing that lends itself towards. In other words, hey, live your life. Tell me a little bit more about some other stories.
Well, I think about another lady who actually grew up in China, and particularly there, having boys is extremely important. And her parents believed so strongly they were going to have a son. And then when it turned out that she was a daughter, it was like they didn't know what to do with her. And so they still treated her like a son. And she grew up like she was a boy, unlike her sister. And, you know, she went through college this way. She got a career. She never was trained within the home like the other girls were. And she said it took 40 years as she struggled with her identity to know that she was a woman and truly embrace that she was a woman. And unfortunately, it cost her 3 marriages. She is now in her 4th marriage, but things are much, much different. Has 2 beautiful sons and a wonderful family, and is doing well today. But you know, it's amazing how we can struggle with our identity when things are good. But when we deal with these kind of things, we can't even imagine how some people struggle with that kind of thing. But through her faith, she found the answers, and like I said, is doing well today.
When we talk about intersectionality of stories, I mean, that is something that gives one, I think, should give everybody hope, because what we actually see is a commonality among folk. And when you see that commonality, you know that, you know, I'm going through what I think is some stuff, but really everybody has their own crosses to bear.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. And, you know, so often I have so many people say to me, well, I don't have a big story like you or like some of these people. But the thing is, we all have a story. And to me, it's not about the size of the trauma or the story. It's about what we learn from it. That's what's big. It can be a little incident, but what we learn from it can make all the difference. And so to me, that's where the big story comes in.
You couldn't be more right. You know, on Politics Done Right, we have what we call our Politics Done Right posse. And the amount, we have people from the left, from the right, from I don't know where, from just about everybody participating in this group. And I tell you, listening to every single person, the dynamic listening. I've even, you know, being the independent type media that we are, I've even, if somebody is close to me in town, gone and had coffee with somebody that's completely diametrically opposed to me, and sit down and have those conversations, those stories told. And some of these folks would be surprised. Wow, we can sit down and exchange stories. We thought we were nothing alike. And it turned out that these stories presented so much that, again, but that is what I preach. People have to create friction among humans for humans to not be together, because we are a social being. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, Yes, we are. We are created to connect with one another, to be social beings. That's why these last 2 years have been so difficult for so many people, because we've been isolated. When we are created to get to know, to be with others. And, it was so well said. We can go out for coffee, somebody who you think you have nothing in common. If you're willing to share your story, people will connect. Their circumstances may be very different than yours, but we all connect through pain, through conflict, and through our problems. And somehow, as we connect, we can begin listening and appreciating one another. I love
Tell me
it.
a little bit about your TED Talk.
Oh, my TED Talk. My TED Talk is actually my personal story, and that goes way back to when I was only 14 years of age. And through a tractor accident, my precious little 2-year-old brother was killed. I was the one driving the tractor.
Oh.
And even though I was only 14, on the farm, we all drive these implements early. And it was my first month of high school, and that was a major adjustment. And as you can imagine, I not only crushed my little brother, my parents, my siblings, my life was crushed. And, it's like, how do you go forward? How do you step forward? But I'll tell you what, the more I think about it, it's not different than any other big crisis. We have to literally just put one foot in front of the other and go day by day and step forward and face the fear, face the pain the best we can to embrace it so that we can move on. And that was, even though I feel like I've lived a very fulfilled life, it was a 45-year journey to complete healing. And that complete healing was a miraculous healing when it came. But I knew then, it was then that I was given and embraced my new mission. And that was to impact 1 million people a year through story.
Now, how are you going to reach 1 million people a year? That is a monumental task.
It is. And when I received that, I thought, oh my goodness, I have no idea how this is going to happen. And that was just over 6 years ago. 3 years ago, I relaunched my 3 bestsellers, and I decided to work with a publicist and do a lot of podcasts and radio and television and so forth. And by the end of the year, when I finally stopped to take a breath, I looked at this and I thought, this is amazing. I mean, many of these different podcasters had over 1 million viewers themselves. Of course, you never really know how many you're impacting, but, there was incredible opportunities. I had 3 big television programs. One of them, I had received a letter from 4 people in the office. And I thought, this must be a pretty big office because they don't know about one another. And so I asked one of them, I said, can you just kind of give me an idea about how big your reach is? And she says, hang on a second. She ran, asked the producer, came back. She says, yes, we have 65 million and we just added 4 million. And I thought, I wish I'd asked that question after I had talked instead.
Because now you're like, oh my God, look at the impact.
Now I was nervous. But there were several opportunities. Another television show that live streams to 161 countries. And, when I put all this together, I realized, and I always knew this wasn't just about taking my story out to reach millions. This is about helping others to take their story out. So as last year, when I stepped out to do this anthology with 7 authors, I'm now doing the podcast. I believe that's how we've connected, and television and radio and so forth. And I've been doing it for several months, and it's just been so exciting to see the doors that will open, things that'll happen, and people who you least expect. I'll tell you a short story. I was speaking with somebody who basically works with drug addicts and alcoholics. And anyway, the questions he asked, he was just kind of all over the place. And I thought, I don't even know if I've connected at all. But the next day I sent an email, thanked him for the opportunity to speak to his audience. And I said, I hope this was helpful. He said, it was very helpful. You were great. He says, the person pushing the buttons, he was so caught up in your story, he forgot to send us to commercial. I thought you'd never know who you're reaching.
Actually, you know, that is actually so very true. And that is why when you have a platform, you have to be very responsible with that platform, because you don't really realize how many people on, no matter how small, I'm a small platform, but the amount of folks that have been impacted far exceeds what one would believe. And it's amazing if you see some of the emails, letters, and even sometimes they hunt you down, what you actually get. But look, I love what you do. I love stories. You know, my daughter herself I'm a writer. My daughter is a writer. She just finished medical school, working on her boards, but in the process, she's had 2 strokes.
Oh, no.
And I'm telling you, she has completed, she went through her 3rd year with a stroke, fulfilled her 3rd year with a stroke. She got another stroke at the middle of 4th year, so had to postpone a bit. She finished her 4th year in January.
Wow.
With half of her body stroked out. And now she's studying for her boards. So I always like her to know how proud that I am of her and so forth. But she has been writing her story, her tribulations and so forth, 1 chapter at a time. And she's been putting out there 1 chapter at a time. So I know stories connect, because she has connected with so many people with her story. And, you know, and you with you putting these, I mean, I just think it's a good thing for the country, and I hope more people get involved in it. More stories, less fighting.
Yes, I believe everybody has a transformational story. It's not just any story.
Right.
It's a transformational story. Sometimes we just need to learn the skill of how to tell it, but it's there. So thanks for sharing that story. That is powerful.
Let me tell you, the last question is always a very simple one. Tell me where I have erred. What should I have asked you that I didn't?
Why does your story matter?
Why does your story matter?
I believe my story matters because I'm not here about me. I'm here for the people around me. And if in some way I can help, I can serve them through story and give them hope, that's what I'm all about. And that's what I believe everybody has the opportunity to share.
Linda Olson is the go-to story expert, author of Story Matters, Empowering Your Hope When Going Through Tough Times. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed talking to her. We even spoke for a while after the interview, because again, it is enlightening, and stories is something that I like. Whether I agree with you, don't agree with you, I want to hear your story. You know what I mean? I want to hear your story. Oh, thank you very much, E22447, for reminding me it is that time. So before I get started, let me go ahead and throw this out for you. I haven't done the change in commercials yet. Bridge Berto Willis, as host of Politics Done Right, a progressive radio media show on Pacifica Network's KPFT 90.1 FM Houston that engages all ideologies. I found that our political angst isn't mostly ideological. There is a well-designed effort by many in power to control us. If we are at each other's throats, we are less likely to demand our economic and local wishes. In that light, I wrote 3 books. I wrote the first one titled, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, to describe the entire economy in a manner we can all understand. It highlights why it was designed to pilfer most as it empowers a few, the chosen. The second book, titled, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, take it to the next level. After understanding how the system pilfers, it is incumbent that we can speak to our peers to empower a change. The third book, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, gives us a place to land. After learning about our economy that is dysfunctional for most and learning how to engage the other side, we point out what would make an economy that works for all. Each book stands on its own, but together they provide the full picture. Please consider getting one or more. You will undoubtedly learn, be entertained, and help us continue the mission with our blogs, articles, videos, and books. Absolutely so, folks. And please, if you could be so kind, if you are on YouTube, please click that join button, become a part of our PDR posse. If you don't see that join button, there are other ways that you can work with us. As soon as I bring up the links that I need to provide, please consider going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. That is where you can go ahead and become a part of the YouTube posse, and everything that there's a few restricted videos that are for members' eyes only. You know, I gotta have a perks for our peeps. So please go ahead and sign up at politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Alternatively, you can also become a Patreon. That is at politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Patreon. Our best way to support as well, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. You can either do a one-time contribution, or if you want to do a monthly thing, we so kindly and actually needed to keep doing what we're doing. And of course, our store is open with new products. politicsdoneright.com/store. politicsdoneright.com/store. Please go ahead and visit it. The link is in there. And those books that you saw me advertise before, politicsdoneright.com/books. I promise you, these books are worth the read. A couple of guys came on and said, "Hey, I got the book that's called How to Make America Utopia." And as soon as I finished that one, I went ahead and got As I See It, because I loved it's How to Make America Utopia. It's really a good read. And you know what? I always have a smile on. I'm always ready to go, etc. I love doing what I do. I love engaging with people, but I've gone through a whole lot in my life, right? So I told you guys I was going to write a book about all the tribulations I've had from being a student here in America as an Afro-Latino Caribbean guy, to the University of Texas, to corporate America, to forming my own business, to the crazy things I had to go through to get start off in business, loans, all that good stuff I had to go through, and I lived it all, right? From the corporate side to the private sector side, etc. So I've started to write that book one chapter at a time. The name of the book now is called Tribulations of an Afro-Caribbean Latino Man. Racisms Didn't Stop My Smile, Hope, or Journey Forward. I want to repeat the title. It's called Tribulation of an Afro-Caribbean Latino Man. Racism Didn't Stop My Smile, Hope, or Journey Forward. And guess what? I finished the first chapter last night and posted it. And you can actually go check it out right there at the link that I just put there. It's a Kindle story that I have there. Anyhow, I have another great video for you, but I want to set it up. It's an important setup. All of my conservatives in the room, right? They hate, sad you have to spell, I know. All the conservatives in the rooms, they would want you to believe that you can't have government involved in stuff. It's socialism. We can't have government helping people. We can't have government helping people, giving them a hands up. Oh, no, we can't do that. That is socialism, right? We preach that. They want us to believe that. They want us to settle for less and less and less. But now that we have a supply chain problem, now that we have a trucking problem, guess who is solving the problem? And you won't hear industry saying much. You won't hear industry saying, "Oh, thank you, government, for doing what we didn't do because we're too greedy." You won't see that. I want you to listen to Pete Buttigieg and the president. And then I have quite a bit to say afterwards. But this is important, and please listen to it in the proper context. Let's get busy with this one.
And we just completed the 90-day sprint to get these actions off the ground, so I'm pleased to provide an update. In order to create debt-free pathways into the career for more people, including more women and drivers of color, we teamed up with the Department of Labor to grow the number of registered apprenticeships for high-quality paid on-the-job training. We're investigating truck leasing arrangements to make sure that they're above board. We're working on truck driver pay, including those hours when drivers don't get paid even though they're very much on the job because they're waiting for somebody else. We're making it easier for veterans to join the trucking workforce, partnering with the Department of Defense. And of course, we are fixing roads and bridges across America. One trucker told me infrastructure is our workplace. And now we are enhancing that workplace thanks to unprecedented funding through the President's infrastructure law. And yes, that includes working with states to use that funding to build more safe truck parking, because we know that that is such a central issue for truckers today. These actions are going to help us recruit more drivers and, just as importantly, retain them, to help keep down shipping delays, rein in the price of goods at a time when we're fighting inflation with everything we've got. And of course, supporting these essential workers is just the right thing to do. I'm proud of all we got done in this 90-day sprint. But I promise you, to the trucking community, and I promise you, Mr. President, this is just the beginning.
Over the course of my presidency, the economy has now created 7.9 million jobs. More jobs in the first 14 months than any president ever, in large part because of all of you. Not a joke. Unemployment's at 3.6%, down from 6.4% when we took office. The fastest decline in unemployment start of any presidential term ever recorded. And after a long stretch, Americans are back to work. Americans are back to work. An economy has gone from being on the mend to being on the move. And the economy we're building a strong economy, one where hardworking Americans can live with dignity, support their families, build a better life, and a better life for their children as well. All of you here today are people our economy should be built around, because you all are the people who literally make it run. I have nothing against investment bankers. They could all retire and nothing much would change. You all quit, everything comes to a halt. Think about it. I'm not joking. During the pandemic, a lot of Americans have been introduced to a term you all know well, and Pete used it, supply chains. A simple term. Supply chain is a journey, the journey of a product to get to a customer's doorstep. That's what it is. And during the pandemic, those chains were interrupted. Factory closures around the world, not just the United States, around the world, caused backups and delays because of COVID. At the same time, because of the strength and speed of our recovery, Americans had more money in their pockets than they had in a long time. During the pandemic, they wanted to spend that money not on restaurants or vacations, which are now coming back as well, but on hard goods. They wanted home improvements, televisions, automobiles, things that had to be transported. The very products that slowed down by disruption of the supply chain. Demand was high. Supply was interrupted, and the recipe for higher prices and long delays. That's exactly what we saw not only here, but all around the world. So we knew we needed every tool at our disposal to address the problem. And the best way to do it was to invest in people who make the supply chain run. Trucking moves about 70% of all the goods in this country, 70%. And truck drivers are facing real challenges. The average driver waits 4.5 hours for their truck to be loaded and unloaded during an 11-hour shift, and 40% of their day. And they don't get paid for that wait time. Back in 1978, the average truck driver's pay was $34 an hour in today's dollars. Last year, it was $25 an hour. Nearly a 30% decline. In this iconic American industry, it's getting harder and harder to raise a family with dignity and pride that you deserve. And it's no surprise so many drivers left their jobs. The workforce is getting older. But look, it's getting harder and harder to recruit new drivers, particularly women and people of color, to an industry that this nation and our economy desperately needs at full strength. The good news is that since I took office, we've begun to turn things around. In fact, in 2021 was the best year for trucking employment since 1994. There are now 35,000 more trucking jobs than there were before the pandemic. But we all know we need to move faster, getting more people working in this industry in jobs they can rely on and raise a family on. That's why last December, we brought together industry and labor to tackle the problem facing drivers. And we listened. And when we heard that there were long wait times in many states for people to get their commercial driver's license, their CDLs, we took action. We provided technical assistance as well as $57 million in federal funds to help states issue these CDLs faster. And I'm proud to report, because of Pete and others, so far in 2022, we're issuing CDLs at double the rate of last year, 120,000 in January and February alone. We also know that the key ingredient to getting and keeping more drivers was increasing training programs like the registered apprenticeships approved by the Department of Labor. Programs that allow aspiring drivers to earn while they learn, while making this essential job more attractive for potential drivers regardless of age, background, and gender. The program has proven to be improved safety and better working conditions and better pay and benefits. Typically, it takes about 8 months to create a registered apprenticeship program. But because of Pete and others in the Department of Labor, we're able to cut the red tape, and now it takes as little as 2 days. In the last 90 days, 100 major employers have launched new registered apprenticeship programs. UPS, Domino's, Pepsi's, Albertsons, and more, along with the trade associations like the American Trucking Association, the National Minority Trucking Association, the Food Industry Association, and others. What that all adds up to is a strong foundation for the work ahead, a pipeline of hardworking men and women from all backgrounds, highly trained and highly motivated to get behind the wheel, including a whole lot of veterans, thanks to the Veterans Trucking Initiative known as Task Force Movement by Patrick Murphy, led by Patrick Murphy. But look, the Labor and Transportation Departments are working closely with industry to tackle issues facing women in trucking, recruit and retrain more women drivers, so we can draw more Americans to work with increased wages, reduced wait times, and improved safety, and so much more. Folks, there's a heck of a lot more we have to do, a lot more we have to do. Secretary Buttigieg has laid out some of the steps we're taking to make these jobs more attractive for more Americans. And it's all centered around listening to you, the drivers. Look, we've got to keep it going. We're building a better economy around American manufacturing and American supply chains. And thanks to the infrastructure law, and it wasn't my law, it was a bipartisan, one of the few great bipartisan things we've done this year. We're making the largest investment in American roads and bridges since literally the creation of the interstate highway system. And that means a bright future for American trucking. This country will be counting on you more than it ever has. So you should be able to count on us to keep investing in you and your families.
We spend a lot of time. Now, here's my take on this, first of all. Kudos to the administration. They are providing welfare to the private sector. Really, Egberto? Why are you saying that? I want to show you how greedy the private sector is, as they want to blame government for everything. Is government working smoothly as it should? No. But you know, when you're always, when all you have on your mind is, I don't want to pay taxes, and government has to live within the domain of not spending the money necessary to invest in things, that's what you get. But here is the most obscene thing. I don't see how Biden goes on national TV and talks the way he does about, we're doing these great things for the supply chain, which he is, but shouldn't have to. Let's be clear here. I want you to let's break down what just happened, what Pete Buttigieg said, and what the president has said as well. This is important. One, the most important thing you need to know right now. Truck drivers in today's dollars were making $30-something, about 34, 35 bucks 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. And today they are making 25 bucks. What that means is that the productivity, that you saw on Wall Street when they said transportation, productivity in transportation, that was on the backs of the drivers. The drivers were taking home less money. They just took the money from the drivers, the corporations, that is. That's number one. Number two, they have a supply chain problem because you don't have enough drivers, because you don't pay them enough, and because of you sillily you offshored all your production. You created just-in-time inventory, which means if there's a lag in getting your transportation from wherever you're getting transport from, including overseas, wherever you get transport from, if there's a delay, because you have just-in-time inventory, you get shortages. If you get shortages, people are willing to pay more to make sure they get it and the other person doesn't get it. That's called inflation. Inflation generated by the failure of the corporatocracy, not generated by we the people who are doing our jobs, right? So here we go. We're now the president and his administration are now going to subsidize veterans, women, people of color, all these people that have not generally had the resources to go ahead and get CDLs, etc., training, etc. The government's going to subsidize them. Wait a minute. Who is that? Who are they subsidizing them for? The people who are getting the job? No, they are actually subsidizing the private sector. Because the private sector now says, I get a discount on training. It's the same thing with college education. It used to be you pay your taxes so that you can go to college at a low cost. Corporation paid a lot of taxes. Everybody paid taxes. People went to college, got educated on the cheap, and then they were brought back into the system to the corporations. And you don't feel bad that you educated the people who did work for the corporation and made profit for people. That's fine. But now the corporations don't want to educate you. They don't want to pay taxes for public universities. They want you to get a loan from another corporation. So you are going to pay your education. You're going to pay the interest rates for the loans you take for your education. So you're enriching corporations for taking the education that you need to get a job where he didn't pay taxes for your education. So you got to his front door educated, meaning that's a cost he doesn't have, and then he just take it all to the bank. People, the biggest problem here I see is people don't itemize and go through one at a time how these systems really put the onus on the average American system, the average American person every single time. The corporations always comes out ahead. We created a supply chain problem. We come out ahead by having raising interest rates. We paid truckers less. We still come out ahead because you know what? The government gonna step in to make sure that we drop inflation because now we're going to have more truckers and the supply chain is going to get better. Folks, the reason they keep you uneducated, the reason you see Republicans and neoliberal Democrats all the time, they don't want to invest in getting you too smart, because if you understood how the system works, how you always paid the bill. I always tell my personal story. We just had a woman who talks about story, and it went like this. In the days when I had my company, the software company, I created a piece of software that could do something that nobody else in the country was doing. It was called dropping the RTS signal within a few milliseconds for an 8059 chip that couldn't do it. Okay? It's a serial chip. And that I was able to sell a whole ton of that software. Boeing used it in its test equipment. And when Boeing said, I want I don't remember, it was an unlimited license or a 10,000 copy license. I don't remember what it was. I said, okay, and I charged him a whole bunch for it. And you know how I am. I feel guilty for it. Anytime I feel like a capitalist, I start to feel guilty, right? And I'm like, God, you know. Then to justify myself, I said, but that's a big corporation and they can handle that, right? And then I started to think and I said, my God, it's never the corporations who handle it. It's never the corporations who pay. It is always the person without pricing power And that's the person at the bottom of the totem pole. The person who buys the airline ticket paid for that overpriced product. It's the person that doesn't have a say in that they're going to pay $5 a gallon for gasoline, even though it's not their fault. And still, we have people who want to defend the corporations who has the pricing power and the choice not to take your money away. The choice to still make a profit for shareholders, to still make a bonus. But because they have pricing power and you have nothing, you are an indentured servant. You are a antiseptic slave. Because you have no say, they can do as they please. And then whenever you ask them, why are you doing that? It's government's fault. They buy government, elect neoliberals, they screw up the supply chain, they underpay. Remember, there's a guy who had an ice cream place. He was paying $7.25 an hour. Then he jumped it up to $8 an hour. He couldn't get anybody to work during the pandemic. He went to $15 an hour. He couldn't handle the applications. We don't have a labor shortage. We have a shortage of corporations paying people what they're worth. And for all of you who are out there singing the song of the corporation, you are more a slave than anybody else, because you have bought into the lie, the figment of the imagination that they inculcated into your brain. Please, folks, share these products, share these videos. Let's get people smarter. Let's let them understand how this system really works. It has nothing for it. It is the current layout. Even Biden had a beautiful speech. Biden is going to fix the supply chain problem. He's going to get a lot of truckers on the road, and he has. He has made it a lot easier. He has invested in these bills to put more truckers on the road. But you know what? You paid for it. You paid for it, as opposed to the corporation who raised your prices and got you nothing other than taking your money and giving it to shareholders and executive bonuses, going on to Wall Street and said, look how much we made. And we even shipped less product and made more. We have oil. We have an overflow of oil, but you know what? We're not going to pump it. We're not going to turn on those spigots that are not running in Texas or in Arkansas or in Pennsylvania. We're going to leave them shut. You know why? We keep the product and we charge more. Folks, when you realize that you've been had, and I'm hoping people start to understand the things that I talk about, because that's how we're going. Oh, wow, it's 5. Man, I'm over. Folks, I want to thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. Please, please, please share the program, because that is how we're going to make the change. You can support the program. All the forms of supporting the programs is at politicsdoneright.com/support. And thank you for being here, Brother Rodnin, Bridge MCP. And please check out my new story that I'm writing it a chapter at a time. And that's the link for it. Whoops, let me go ahead and do that again. That's the link for it right there. Check it out. I'm going to be trying to put at least 1 chapter a week, maybe 2 chapters a week. I don't know. Anyhow, thank you so kindly. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.